prices of goods and services have skyrocketed, and the majority of Nigerians attribute this development to the removal of subsidies on petroleum products, as well as the hike in the price of petroleum products that followed the removal of subsidies. Initially, it was about around 200 and something naira.
Yes.
They increased it to 500 plus, and after some few days or 2 weeks, they now jack it up to 620 naira. So if you are buying fuel at 620 per liter, a car that has a 70-liter capacity, you will spend close to 50,000 naira.
Of course, you will. You will.
So that means people transporting foodstuff from up north, maybe down to the south, or from the south to up north, are paying through their nose, because that the price did not only, it's not double, not even triple, not quadruple. Only God knows how this thing will multiply. And the more they pay for on transportation, the more the consumers, the end consumers, will pay for the transportation first that they expended on bringing the food to the market.
Of course.
So we are hoping that just like the government roll out palliatives, we are hoping and praying that by the time they begin to work, or people begin to enjoy them, the prices of goods and services will become affordable, and its goods will be available.
Exactly. So going back to what you just spoke about, which transportation, of course, is one of the major issues why we're having high price in foodstuff. Now, it takes my mind back to the then CBN governor, Dr. Godwin Emefiele, when he had the Monetary Policy Committee conference, and then he said something. He said these prices are cheap in the farm gate market. So meaning when you go to, you go direct to these farmers and you're meeting them on their farmland, of course you're going to buy these goods at a cheaper amount. But when they have to transport it down, of course, yes, they have to put in logistics, take out their gains and all of that. It's not easy. Honestly, it's not easy. It's not easy. And still on the commodity market, we can also see a tuber of yam going for 1,000 to approximately 1,500, and the tomato, pepper, onions that we know are very cheap are no longer cheap these days. Yes. And it's also due to transportation. We really hope that things would be better soon, and also we really hope that Nigerians would, adjust to the current situation of the country.
We must adjust.
We must adjust.
They live in a fool's paradise.
Of course.
Expect miracles to happen.
Of course.
Since this government has removed fuel subsidy, and it has attendant consequences, so we have to adjust. We have to accept the fact that we are now living in a new world, and adjustment is necessary. If you fail to adjust now, maybe you'll do it later, compulsorily.
And that might be very, very difficult for you. Exactly. Okay, so viewers, we need to go on a short break, and when we come back, we have other interesting and insightful segments waiting for you on the morning cruise. Just stay with us. Come back. If you're just joining us, this is the morning cruise right here on Value Chain TV, and myself and Mr. Omar were taking you through the amazing and interesting segments that we have on the morning cruise. And next, we need to discuss, we have electricity, which of course we all need electricity, and electricity is not majorly for only business owners. As individuals, we need electricity every day. We have things to run on electricity and what have you. But then surprisingly, this sector has been privatized. But then yet we still have poor electricity in the country. So Mr. Omar, you are a Nigerian, thank God. You're not from Niger. You're a Nigerian, and you know that light is very, very important. So what can you say concerning this sector? Because it's alarming. It's been privatized. But then we still have poor electricity in our country. What do you think is the major problem?
Oh, I don't know. The problem of electricity in Nigeria is, the problem is multidimensional. We have generation, we have distribution, we have transmission. In generation, there is no problem in generation, as so to speak. Though I cannot say completely it's problem free, but the challenges in generation are not as much as what we experience in transmission, distribution, and marketing.
Sure.
You see, like when there was a time I went to Kaduna. We used to get light for 24 hours. All of a sudden, the last time I traveled to Kaduna, we spent a whole day without light.
Now, how did you feel?
I said, what is happening? I said, so. She can't explain.
Of course.
She said they are rationing, they are doing this, I don't know. Not their terminology.
Yes.
But as a layman, all I know is that the volume of electricity we have now in circulation is nothing to write home about. And this has been with us for a very long time. And we all know that Nigeria as a country cannot progress without this power, without energy. This is what will drive our economy.
Sure.
If you look at small scale businesses, they are operating under stress. Talk more of large scale companies. So if the power is not there, where are we heading to? Are we going to make any meaningful progress as a nation? This sector, this NEPA, it was NEPA before.
Of course.
Then they changed the name to Power Politics.
Yes.
Where which people are saying, please
hold your power when there's no power.
So from PHC, and they sold the company to the private sector, thinking that the private sector will now transform that place and make it result oriented. People will now see results. But this, some years down the line, things have not changed.
And then we have Nigerians not paying their electricity bill.
Not just that. That's why I said the challenges there are multidimensional. Besides the problem from the providers, we as consumers, we have our own problem. There was a time I was discussing with a friend of mine who was abusing them left, right, and center, that they are not up to their responsibility, this and that. I said, wait, let me ask you one simple question. Stop blaming these people. We should blame ourselves.
Of course.
He said, no. I said, okay. From your house, I know your house. And I know the people that are getting light through you.
Of course.
Through your meter.
Illegally.
Not one house, not two houses, not 3 houses.
How do you want the sector to even generate money in the first place?
To now come and generate money and continue to provide the service that they are providing. Keep quiet.
And you couldn't say anything. We all are guilty. Yes, we all are guilty. Yes.
It's not just PHC and that is guilty.
Yes.
We the consumers are guilty.
Of course.
When you buy, some will buy a prepaid meter, but it will surprise you to know that
to bypass it at the end of the day.
So that they will continue to enjoy light unlimited, free of charge. And the company, they have staff that are working for them.
How do they generate the money to pay their staffs? True. Take care of expenses and every other basic things they need to do.
So we need to be alive to our responsibilities as citizens of the country.
So we had a special interview and in person of Mr. Abdulaziz Abdullahi, who is the head cooperative communication electricity distribution company. And he actually answered a whole lot of questions. Let's take a look. Nigerians have been clamoring on. Funny enough, it's not just business owners, even as individuals, we keep wondering, why do we keep suffering the poor, inadequate power supply, despite the fact that this sector has been privatized? Hello and welcome. It's really going to be an exciting and also an insightful one. I have a guest with me here, and today we'll be looking at Nigerians' electricity supply remains poor despite privatization. But first, let's go on a quick break, and when we come back, I'll be introducing my guest. Mr. Abdulaziz Abdullahi in the studio with me here. He's the head of corporate communications, Kaduna Electricity Distribution Company, and together we'll be looking at this very important topic, which is Nigerians' electricity supply remains poor despite privatization. You're welcome, sir, and it's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you very much. Pleasure so much.
Thank you so much, sir. So first, let's start with the first question, of course, is always on everybody's lips. Why do we still have inadequate poor power supply in the country?
Thank you very much for that question, and I agree with you. A lot of Nigerians keep asking the same question, and the answer is not far-fetched. The reason essentially is because we are unable to generate enough supply to satisfy our needs and consumption.
Okay.
As we speak, we are hardly able to produce about 3,000 megawatts for the whole of the country. We are producing an average 3,000, 3,005. We have not been able to produce up to 4,000 for quite a while. And you'll agree with me, for the whole of Nigeria, with over 200 million people, that is significantly low. So that is the first reason why we are unable to have adequate supply across the country. And the reason why we are unable to have adequate supply, which is the natural question to ask, is because the value chain is not sufficiently liquid, in the sense that there are three arms of the value chain, and each require funds to continue to keep the wheel going, as it were. The generation companies who generate the power, they need to buy gas from our multinational partners.
Okay.
So and they buy that gas on credit. And the credit has become so high now that those partners are not willing to provide adequate gas for the generation companies. So the generation companies are there. Their plants are not at optimum, performing at optimum. So that is the first step in the problem. We don't have enough gas to power all the generating plants across the country, all the generation companies, so that they can produce at optimum. We can get sufficient megawatts produced that can be transmitted and then onward to the distribution to customers. And secondly, also, even if the little that they are able to generate, when it comes to transmission company also needs money to service their power, the high tension power lines, and then before it gets to distribution company, whose responsibility it is to distribute to customers. And so once there isn't commensurate payment for what has been produced, for all the services that has been rendered from generation to transmission and ultimately to distribution, then the whole value chain is affected. If customers are not paying as they should, it means the generation companies cannot have sufficient money to pay transmission company for the lines that it has used to receive the power, and also transmission company there's difficulty also remitting money back to the generation companies, who ultimately remit to the gas companies. So there is illiquidity in the system, and that is a major bottleneck, and that is why problems keep persisting.
Okay, so have there been so far with all of these major challenges you've been able to mention, have there been any measures put in place to help curb all of these issues so we can have a smooth electricity in the country?
Yeah, there have been many strides. Of course, even though, like you said at the beginning, the sector has been privatized, the generation part has been privatized, and the distribution part. But because of the illiquidity, because of the poor funding, poor flow of funds in the system, it makes it difficult to meet the objective of providing sufficient power. And government has realized that and has made a few interventions in the past. CBN had come in to give loans and ensure that the generation companies are paid for what they produce. But the problem is that it's not a sustainable solution long term.
Okay.
It gets to a point that even the government itself is exhausted. It doesn't have all the money to continue to pump into the sector. And the sector that we say we have privatized, but yet still needs intervention to survive.
But the sector is also generating funds as well.
But it's not enough. It's not enough.
Okay.
For instance, in Kaduna, our monthly bill for both the power we receive from generation companies, which we pay through what is called the Nigerian Bulk Electricity Trader, the MBET, and also they are also invoiced from TCN. It's close to 7 billion every month, every 30 days. We get an invoice for these two services of close to 7 billion naira. But what we're able to collect from our customers for the power that we have given them, for that power worth 7 billion, is just about 2.5 to 3 billion. So it means on an average, every month, we lose about 3.5 to 4 billion naira.
So is there a measure still to help the electricity sector, to have a very low loss, because we have a whole lot of Nigerians are using electricity?
Yeah, but the measure is that it comes back to the customer. It comes back to the customer because the power that you are given is measured. There are meters at points that measure your consumption.
Okay.
So if you don't pay for it, it becomes a problem. This 3.5 to 4 billion naira loss that I'm talking about, it's money for power that has been consumed. And ordinarily, you should know that if you consume, you should pay. So once you don't pay, it becomes a problem. You understand? So that's the challenge, and it's really something that it has just weighed the system down. The weight of debt on both the generation companies and the transmission companies and the distribution companies is just too much. So until we get to that point where customers realize that indeed every megawatt that you consume, you need to pay for it. It's just like your MTN phone, for instance, or whatever network you use. If you use the service, you pay for it. If you go to the filling station, you buy, you fill your tank, whatever amount is put into your tank, you must pay for it.
Of course.
I mean, that's how it should be. That is the attitude that Nigerians should imbibe.
Okay, so over the years, since the electricity sector have, found out that a lot of customers that are consuming this electricity don't pay, is there a law governing this particular sector in collecting a whole lot of this money from the customers that have used this electricity over the years and refused to pay? Because it's really a major challenge, So I think, is there that measure, has it been put in place?
You see, the only measure that we can put in place is to disconnect. If you don't pay, ordinarily you should be disconnected. Or if you are caught stealing, there is a penalty for the stealing of energy, which it's not punitive enough.
Okay.
So it doesn't serve the kind of, it doesn't it doesn't deter people from doing it again, because it's just, I think, 1,000 for the first offender is 100,000 naira. Even though there is a bill at the National Assembly, at the last National Assembly, I remember that the Nigeria Electricity Regulatory Commission sent, asking for the penalties to be reviewed, to include in jail term and all that. So until that is done, and then people are seen to be arrested and actually jailed for stealing energy, it becomes a major crime. It's something that people should feel ashamed about. I think we'll still have to be struggling with that, the problem. But I'm hoping that with the new government in place, that those key measures will be put in place, so that it will deter people from stealing energy, from vandalizing equipment, transformers and all. And hopefully also the most important thing is that that attitudinal change that we need to have, to know that electricity is a service like anything else. You cannot use it and not pay for it. You understand?
So let's look at the prepaid meters, because if people are on direct meters and they keep consuming this electricity and they are not paying, how about the ones on prepaid meters? Do you have like a concrete record of these people using these meters, and you're sure they are actually using the meters and paying, buying units, or not bypassing these meters?
Yeah, we have the records of all the meters that are in our network, but the problem is that people still bypass it, like you said. People still tamper with it, and that way energy is lost, and then we're unable to account for that energy. It becomes a loss. We have instances in the past where people will be clamoring for meters, and once you put the meter, if you go back a few days after, you see that they have tampered with the meter. So what they just want is to consume free energy, and then they will go back and be complaining that power supply is bad and all that. So it's all about an ethical revolution or additional change, like I said, that we need in the country. You understand? Our prepaid meters are there, but it will surprise you to know that in Kaduna, where we cover 4 states, Sokoto, Zamfara, and Kebbi, we still have, by the records, our customer base is not more than 6 million, and that is the number of people that are on our records. But of course, you know that these 4 states have much more than that.
Sure.
So it means so many more people are using electricity that are not captured, they are not in the system. It's partly our fault, I have to accept, because we also need to have enumerated all our customers.
Of course.
But for one reason or the other, we have not been able to do it successfully. And for another reason is that there's still connivance amongst customers. You find somebody who has a house, but behind him he's knowingly giving others supply. So you have a house that has about 3 or 4 people enjoying supply from one source, I would say.
Okay.
So we bring a bill for one person, thinking that he's the only one using it, but not knowing that there are so many others. So all those are losses that contribute to that huge loss I was talking about earlier. So it really is a challenge, and I think we need to just accept that if indeed we want a change in the power supply situation, as customers, we also have a very key role to play.
And we also hope that the electricity sector will also put in strict measures, to make sure that customers are responsible, for this electricity that they use and they refuse paying, because it's really, really important.
Indeed.
Yes. So let's move to our next question. So currently, the 36 states in Nigeria are allowed to generate, transmit, and also distribute electricity in regions covered by the national grid. So we need you to kindly briefly explain to our viewers, or rather give us an insight of what is expected from the states.
Yeah, I think it's a very good development for the sector.
Okay.
It has opened up the market as well. It means more participants can come in. Before it was a kind of a monopoly as well. Understand, only Kaduna Electric has the right to manage the power that goes to the grid within the states that it covers. The same for other discos in other states. So, but now the market has been opened up such that states can also come and play in that same with supply on the grid. They can generate, they can transmit as well, and distribute. But the problem is that not all states are ready. There is
yes, I was coming to that.
Exactly, yes. Not all the states are ready. I think, if I may hazard a guess, I don't think out of the 36 states, 5 are ready to begin to work on this.
Is Kaduna State ready?
The last I heard was that the state government has sent a bill regarding setting up a company that will do this work. But I think it will take some time. But I think they have gone a little further ahead of others. They have had the Kaduna State Power Supply Company that has been working to ensure that communities that are off-grid are being supplied power through solar and renewables. So I think they are a step ahead, but even for them, there is still a lot of work.
Okay, so what do you think are the challenges that the states are facing, and the reasons why they have not kickstarted what they're supposed to do?
You see, we haven't even talked about pricing. What about the infrastructure is not even in place? You understand? Because if they want to use the existing infrastructure that the discos have, that means they have to pay them.
Sure.
If they want to use the infrastructure of the TCN, they also have to pay them. So all this nitty-gritty have to be worked out. They have to sit down and discuss how this is going to work. If you are going to use if for instance Kaduna State government wants to use Kaduna Electric's grid network to distribute to its customers, so how much are you going to charge your customers? How much are you going to pay us first, and then how much are you going to charge your customers? So it means that the cost that you may charge your customers the Kaduna State government will charge its customer may even be higher than the one that currently Kaduna Electric is charging. So all that needs to be worked out, especially with the involvement of the regulator. There's a lot of work to be done, to be honest. So I don't think it's a welcome thing, but it's not something that will bring succor, as it were, in the short term.
Okay, so do you have like an estimate of how long that the states can be able to, so that our viewers would, get ready to?
I can't tell you that. I don't know what the states are doing. I don't know their budgets. I don't know their plans.
Okay.
So I can't talk about that.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much for that. So there's no way you can talk about electricity without talking about renewable energy. So that brings us to our next question. So we're going to look at the power system and also the renewable energy. So of course we know that currently Nigeria is a major supplier of electricity to the Republic of Benin, Togo, and the likes. First things first, we'll need you to kindly explain to our viewers what is renewable energy for the interest of those that are not even aware of what renewable energy is. And then after that, we also need you to tell us what again is power system, because the two, of course, they go together, and how does it work?
Renewables are just energy that are derived from sources like the sun, wind, and also biomass, those kind of things. So those are essentially the renewables, and why they are very key to the project, to the power supply system, is that it will help to bring, especially those who are not on the grid, communities in the rural areas, that extending the grid to them has not been possible due to costs and all that. Even if you extend it to them, chances are that they cannot even pay for it, because of course it's not cheap. So if there's a very viable renewable energy market, it makes access much more wider to a wider public. And I think a lot of governments are working towards that, both in the state and the federal government. The Rural Electrification Board, I know that they have been doing a lot of work in that regard to see that they expand access to power to places that are not on the grid. Even in Kaduna, I know that some of the establishments, some hospitals, some schools, have been provided electricity through alternative sources from the grid. So the whole idea is to be more inclusive in terms of access to power.
Okay, so Mr. Abdulaziz, we'll go on our first break, and when we come back, of course, yes, we'll still continue with the explanation you're giving about the renewable energy and also power system. Okay, so viewers, we'll be going on a break, and then when we come back, we'll continue the topic at hand, which is Nigerians' electricity supply remains poor despite privatization, and our guest is still with us here in the studio. Don't go anywhere, we'll be right back shortly.
For over 150 years, the world continued to burn fossil fuels, with over 3/4 being burned in Europe and America, while the rest of the world burned only 1/4.
We should be talking about energy transitions.
I stand on behalf of the president of the International Association for Energy Economy.
Energy is security, it's economy, it's health, it's agriculture, it's everything.
I'd like to begin by noting that the energy transitions are not new to mankind.
It is a reality that climate change concerns are forcing nations to improve the manner of producing and consuming energy resources to ensure energy sustainability.
For defining the energy
makes an energy transition is very real, and we need to prepare.
We're in a transition period. The world is in a global transition, so there's no doubt that Nigeria will also transition, but it will transition in its own way.
Africa is blessed with abundant mix of energy resources, and that we should be talking in terms of having the right energy mix as against looking at one pathway to energy transition.
Welcome back, and if you're just joining us, this is a segment on the Morning Cruise Chit Chat, and we're still with my guest, Mr. Abdulaziz Abdullahi, the head of Corporate Communications Electricity Distribution Company in Kaduna State, and we're still discussing the topic: Nigerians' electricity supply remains poor despite privatization. So, Mr. Abdulaziz, you've been able to explain a whole lot about the electricity sector in Nigeria and the reason why it's the way it is and all of the challenges. So, of course, we know renewable energy is the new thing now. So, we want to also hear from you. What do you think is the future of renewable energy in Nigeria?
I think the future is very bright, more so now that the cost of the cost of electricity that we get from the grid is expensive, or it's even I'm sure very soon there's likely going to be an increase in tariff, so people will be looking for cheaper alternatives. So, and then renewables play a very key role in that, and governments, I believe, they have seen that as well, and also some governments are investing in it. Many companies have come into the market, which is bad news for us anyway. But it is what it is. We just have to deal with it. We have to be also very innovative ourselves to sell our product. In any case, ours is, for now, it's much more reliable. You know, if you compare the cost you pay for a kilowatt of power from the grid compared to probably what you will get when you are burning your diesel, or you know that it's much cheaper to be on the grid.
Of course.
Like I said, the more the merrier, as it were, because we also want people who do not have access to have access to power. Power it's key to our lives. It helps to create employment. It opens up the economy, and drives change and innovation in society. So power is key. It's very important. So the more players that we have in the various segments, I think the better for the economy.
Okay, so Mr. Abdulaziz, we've taken up your time. So lastly, before we go, there's a very important segment that we want you to kindly elaborate. So we want to talk about the upgrade of customers' standard transfer specification, which is the STS, and this scheme is expected to roll over before the end of the year. So do you think accurate measures have been put in place to have a smooth process?
Actually, it's not the end of this year. It's by the end of November 2024.
Okay.
So, but most meters is not across the globe that are on the STS system. They need to be upgraded by the end of November 2024.
Okay.
And it has to do with the way the meters were configured. They are configured in such a way that by that end of November, they will stop receiving tokens. So if you buy a token and load it by the 25th of November next year, if you are not upgraded now, chances are that that meter will not work. So that is why we are saying that customers should come forward, those who have not been upgraded, to come and upgrade their meters. And it's a very simple process. When you go to buy a token for your meter, you'll be given two more tokens in addition to the one you bought.
Okay.
So those 2 tokens that you buy are called key change 1 and key change 2.
Okay.
So you just go home, punch the key change 1, punch the key change 2, and then put in the token you have bought. That's all. The upgrade has been done automatically. So it's not an elaborate process. It's not something to worry about. In fact, most of our meters in Kaduna that were installed in the past 2 years, maybe 1.5 years, have already been upgraded at installation. So those that were installed much longer back are the ones that we need to upgrade. And like I said, it's a very seamless process. People don't need to panic. Even if you are buying, if you don't even come to our office to buy, if you go through our online channels to buy, once you make payment, you receive the 2 key change tokens, key change 1 and key change 2.
Okay, so what is the idea behind this upgrade?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's at the manufacturer place.
Okay.
The problem is, how will I put it? Those meters that are using the STS standard,
Okay.
they are the ones that there's a digital configuration of those meters that were done at manufacture, and it's in such a way that by that end of November it will have to be re-upgraded. Otherwise, and if you do that re-upgrading, it will work for the next 40 years. So that's the reason, because if and it's like I said, it's globally anywhere that there's an STS meter. So it's the same problem. It's not a peculiar problem to Nigeria or to Kaduna alone. So I think all the generation distribution companies have begun sensitizing their customers about ensuring that those meters that have not been upgraded are upgraded. And like I said, it's a very simple process.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Abdulaziz, for that insightful explanation. But before we wrap it up today, we need to hear one word from you. What word do you have for the government in terms of making this electricity supply in Nigeria sufficient enough for everybody? Because we know that business owners are majorly the ones, I wouldn't say individuals are not also suffering this poor electricity supply, but of course business owners are the ones really into this thing. So what word of advice do you have for the government in terms of boosting up this the electricity sector in Nigeria, and making sure that we don't have this poor supply of electricity?
In fairness to the government, I think the previous government has done a lot in terms of pushing up the sector, despite all the challenges that we had been facing. Support has continuously been given to the sector so that it can thrive. Like I said, lots of interventions were given to the generation companies and also the distribution companies. I think what probably this government needs to work on crucially is the issue of regulation in terms of penalties for energy theft and vandalism. Stiffer, more punitive penalties that will deter people from even thinking about it, not even doing it, thinking about it.
Wow.
I think it's a major problem. Sometimes in your community, probably you may be out in darkness, and the reason is not because there is no supply from the distribution company. It's because an unscrupulous element has gone to your transformer and tampered with it, and maybe stolen a cable or removed the fuse or just damaged something, and then the whole community is in darkness. So those kind of people need to be punished and then made example of, so that others will not even think about doing it again. And most importantly also is the need for customers, like I reiterated earlier, to really see electricity service as something that needs to be paid for. If you don't want it, all that fine and good, remove the cables. Nobody's forcing you to have it. But if you have it, know that you have to pay for it if you use it.
Okay, so thank you so much, Mr. Abdulaziz Abdullahi, Head of Corporate Communication, Electricity Distribution Company. We are really excited to have you today in the studios, and I know that the viewers have learnt one or two from you concerning the low electricity supply that we're having in the country. And of course, we'll still call on you again, just so in case we have any disturbing issue and we need you to help us and give us more insight on it. Please, we'll also need you to still come back in the studios.
I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much to you, our viewers, for watching. I'll see you next week, same time, same station. My name is Mimuna Bagudu. Do enjoy the rest of your day.